Alright, Jammer here, and I'm wondering, what kind of game does this look like to you? Like an RPG, right? Or maybe an adventure game? I mean, there are swords and giant dragons and monsters and things like that. Well, as it turns out, in actuality, it's a vertically scrolling shooter where you control a giant fire-breathing dragon. And if that sounds totally rad and awesome to you, then I would be in agreement. It's a really fun game too, and one that isn't terribly challenging. This is Dragon Spirit, an NES port of an arcade game from the late 80s, and a title that I find to be very common in used game stores, probably since its gameplay seems incongruous with its title and cover. In this game you can shoot both ground and air similar to Xevious, but a difference with most shooters, in addition to its aesthetics, is in its power-up system. The most common power-ups multiply the dragon's firepower by adding an extra head, up to a maximum of 3. However, this also makes the dragon a larger target, making it harder to dodge enemy fire, and taking a hit removes one head down to a minimum of 1, and reduces the firepower of the dragon. There are other interesting and useful power-ups as well, such as the White Dragon power-up, which adds a spread shot that makes a W shape, the Green Dragon power-up, which adds an overpowered fire shot, and other power-ups that make ground attacks more powerful, or reduces the size of the dragon, to name a few. Some of the power-ups make many of the bosses just pushovers, which is my only complaint about this game. Otherwise, the gameplay is polished, the enemies varied, and the color schemes are pretty interesting for an NES title. I particularly notice how the backgrounds just pop in the desert level, which will be shown on here in a second. And it's hard to imagine the underwater levels color scheme working in many other circumstances on an NES title. Like I said, the game isn't the hardest. If you fail to complete the prologue level, you start as a golden dragon, which can take twice as many hits and has a faster opening firepower. But even the blue dragon can take 3 hits per life. But there are some blue dragon exclusive stages, such as this one, that are pretty challenging. Nevertheless, I think Dragon Spirit is a good starter shooter game, especially with the Golden Dragon option. And I should note that this port plays surprisingly differently from the version available on the Virtual Console from the TurboGrafx 16. And that game is more like a quarter-munching arcade game because the dragon that you control is just massive and it's really hard to dodge enemy shots. I prefer the NES port, personally. And this is one of the underwater stage I was talking about. Lastly, the music is pretty great sometimes, and I'm going to leave with one song that's played only once during a boss fight. Highly recommended for shooter fans, and have a good one.